Hey guys, and welcome to another brand new video. In this video, I want to go do a little bit of a deep dive and talk about a subject that could actually be potentially probably one of the world's worst things we could go and see when it comes to the gaming, when it comes to the overall economy, when it comes to cars, when it comes to PS5s, when it comes to Xboxes, when it comes to GPUs, Switches, you guys go and name it. And this is actually something a lot of folks are also somewhat anticipating and also keeping a very, very close eye on over to as well. Now, this is going to be a little bit more on the political side, a little bit more on like the kind of, I guess, macroeconomic side of the entire world. But I would want to go and say this is something that is kind of somewhat likely. I don't say like super likely you guys should be like stressing out or worried about it, but it's something that people have been keeping a very watchful eye on, have had proper political discussions on, and have like world meetings and world leader meetings and all that stuff. And I kind of want to go talk about it because it's kind of just been in the news so much as of recently. So we have a lot of stuff to go and talk about, and as well make sure you guys are chimed on in if you guys would like to, as well make sure you guys are subscribed with the notifications on, as well for the brand new PlayStation 5 giveaway, Amazon links down below for the PS5 disc, digital console, and controller, Twitter and Twitch stream as well, link down below, and sign up for Weeble. Deposit $100, get a bunch of free stock and free money, some of that Coinbase too as well. Let's go and dive in the video. So you guys can maybe go get a little bit of hint and off of what I'm going to be talking about over here, but I'm sure a lot of you guys recently have heard about the kind of big drama. I don't want to use the word drama, it's probably not the best word for it, but you guys kind of know the soap opera of Russia and Ukraine, the United States, NATO, and all that good stuff. You know, the good old just world basically falling apart even more as per usual. And, well, that is kind of a big issue. Don't get me wrong. There's a very, very big focus that a lot of us, are kind of somewhat apprehensive on, somewhat worried about. There's always a part two of this stuff. And this is where a lot of folks are more on the, well, kind of somewhat scared side. Now, when it comes to this stuff, too, once again, it's kind of just more on like the potentials and a big, like a lot of what ifs, and it's not 100% sent to happen, but even the world leaders over here are kind of concerned about it. So, and this is going to be the main regards of China and Taiwan. Now, you guys might be thinking, scrubbing, why you bring this on up, like, I get it, like consoles, blah, 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 this is a little bit of a reach. And I'm like, honestly, I'd probably say no. So as you guys probably know as of right now, semiconductors have been the big trigger word of these past 2 years. For the pandemic, when it comes to cars, when it comes to PlayStations, when it comes to Xboxes, comes to production, and pretty much everything in the world. And also a little bit more on the scarier side, a little bit more on the military production too as well. And as you guys know, TSMC is probably one of the biggest, if not the most efficient, semiconductor basically producer in the entire world, which is more so focused on how Taiwan, and it's kind of just really big export importer, where I think they have something around like 86% of the entire like super used semiconductors that are being utilized for the entire world. And now what nowadays do we basically have to go put into almost every little bit of technology that we have, whether it's phones or consoles or, like I said, even military grade weapons, which is a little more on the scarier side, semiconductors. So you guys can probably go and see what this kind of goes into 2 and 2. So first and foremost, this is always kind of scary because I was like seeing like initial stuff. We even say for TSMC, we've had multiple news articles basically saying the chip giants are ramping up spending by the literal billions as semiconductor demands boom. So we're even like the world's largest contract chip maker, TSMC, which is based in Taiwan, has committed to investing $100 billion over 3 years to ramp up production. Rival Intel announced last March that it plans to spend $20 billion on 2 new chip plants in Arizona. In the short term, semiconductor analyst Peter Hanbury expects the recovery from the chip shortage to be choppy, and several other companies in the semiconductor supply chain will benefit from investments made by the chip makers. So once again, this is always kind of watching to go and shown on how much and how utilized the Taiwanese basically semiconductors are basically being utilized. But the part two of this is on the fact of, with all this news floating around, everyone is basically kind of being like, well, this is not going to be good, mainly in regards to the United States and mainly in regards also with China, because China and even Chinese governments, trying to keep it like loosey-goosey, kind of how like Russia is. But when it comes to Taiwan, even Taiwan themselves, as the big like country itself, are really worried about the apprehensive of like a Chinese takeover or Chinese push to try to go and basically either reclaim the land or go and try to start like incite like a war when it comes with Taiwan. So, and it kind of makes sense too. So right now you can even see articles over here from New York Times and other various types of things like a left or right, either or when it comes to your political side of war games. A study by a think tank illustrates basically on how dependent the world is on Taiwanese semiconductor foundries. So basically for all this type of stuff is all in regards where Taiwan is one of the most sought after countries when it comes to production, when it comes to making stuff, when it comes to keeping economies alive. And that's why places like China, if they had the chance to, want to go and have as much power and much control over a place like Taiwan as best as they can. Because it also means that then China has really good proper trades, as well as also means of production to keep on making cars and TVs and electronics and everything else that we possibly need in the world. And that's also something that obviously the United States wants to keep on maintaining and producing the best we possibly can. And there's been a lot of issues too as well when it comes to things, when there's like halts and when there's fires and when there's cyber attacks, and basically like obviously war is never a really, really good sign too as well. And this has kind of been scary because we've even had like big members of the government going to try their best to go and do peace treaties and basically try to have like a nice little middle ground over here to come in over here for having like semiconductor chips. We even have even articles over here that we kind of covered saying President Biden urged Congress to pass those bills and promised he would work on bringing production to semiconductor chips back to the United States too as well. And while the United States, he basically says, today we barely produce 10% of the computer chips, despite being the leader in chip design and research. Mr. Biden said, we don't have the ability to make the most advanced chips right now, but today, 75% of production takes place in East Asia, namely Taiwan. 90% of the most advanced chips are made in Taiwan. China is doing everything it can to take over the global market so they can try to outcompete the rest of us and have a lot of applications, including military applications too as well. So this is kind of why we have a big thing where like Joe Biden and the government trying to go push more in like local homegrown semiconductor basically research and basically growth and making more factories and making a little bit more on the domestic rather than also having to have foreign stuff like say in Taiwan. But that's why it's a little bit on the scary side, because we both kind of know both the United States and China have a really big push on trying to becoming and maintaining being a global superpower, having really good means of production, producing, and also getting the best trade deals you possibly can, because the semiconductor and electronics industry is a multi-billion, zillion dollar basically corporation for everything. When it comes to games, when it comes to Apple, when it comes to Sony, when it comes to Xbox, when it comes to GPUs, when it comes to cars, pretty much everything at this point is all reliant on semiconductors, to the point where we're actually going and seeing even car companies themselves trying their best to go and find alternate measures besides semiconductors to go and make sure that their cars and their car companies in production can keep on moving forward, even if there is no semiconductors mixed on in. And that's why we have the bring up when it comes to Ukraine and Russia, because even as of like recently over here, as I mentioned, with Ukraine in the spotlight, Taiwan now has to go and up its guard over a potential Chinese invasion. And a lot of analysts, a lot of people, of course, like always take everything with a grain of salt, even for someone like me who's a random YouTube guy. You gotta always take that with a grain of salt. But when it comes to this stuff, we're seeing the potential where Taiwan themselves are very afraid to increase surveillance. They want to increase military activities, and they just want to make sure that China doesn't try to go and bring all this attention towards them, because while the whole world is focused right now on Russia and Ukraine and potential invasions and potential World War IIIs, we also always potentially have China trying their best to go and maintain and push into Taiwan. And a big, huge factor of this, which is one of their biggest exports, is on semiconductors. And for some obviously you guys think I'm capping or lying, like literally there's articles up the wazoo, there's speculations up the wazoo, even stuff I want to have a chance to go and show you guys. And even kind of goes and shows that Taiwan is literally even nervous that Beijing may take advantage of distracted West, as we mentioned with the Ukraine and Russia conflict, of a distracted West to ramp up pressure on the island amid the crisis of Ukraine. But there's been no unusual maneuvers, thankfully, by Chinese forces in recent days, officials in Taipei said. Although the government, though, is definitely on its toes. So this is once again, like, I don't want you guys to be like, scare is going to happen tomorrow. It's not as of now, but it's a really close thing that a lot of folks are speculating on, probably even assuming on, and it does make a lot of sense, both on political wise and also just military wise as well. The government always on alert to what they view as Chinese provocations. Last month set up a Ukraine working group under the National Security Council. China views Taiwan as its own territory and has stepped up military activity near the self-governing island over the past 2 years. And that's another big thing too, is that basically China kind of has like more of a possession right when it comes to Taiwan, and that's why it's a little bit more scary, because as we keep on mentioning throughout this video, Taiwan itself has such a huge, massive global presence in terms of producing and making semiconductors, where they are literally pretty much like the world's almost broken without them. Like it's almost kind of scary to go and see on how big of a company and how basically running it is, and how far away they are in terms of like how good they can produce and make semiconductors and research them compared to the rest of the world. And that's why China definitely wants to keep its kind of hands close to it, because this can basically like a huge piece of them building their own superpower. And as well, there's also, as I mentioned, even we've been seeing stuff when it comes to American news and huge like international corporations trying to go and talk with Chinese leaders to maintain the neutrality when it comes to Taiwan itself. Even the president, Tsai Ing-wen, hopefully I said it right, told a meeting of the working group on Wednesday that Taiwan must increase its surveillance and alertness on military activities in the region and tackle foreign misinformation. Although she did not definitely go and mention China, a lot of us can put two and two together too as well. So it's kind of very scary because this is like a huge building block in the world, and with how much the semiconductors are still impacting everyone and how basically there's a huge supply drought still everywhere, this could be the cream on the top of the cherry that could basically mess up a lot of things, whether it's for PS5 or Xbox or GPU restocks, cars, etc., or just the entire global economy. So kind of give me your thoughts and comments on this one. This has kind of just been a big topic I want to talk about, especially with the big news when it comes to Russia and Ukraine. So kind of give me your thoughts as well. And now, once again, I want to remind you guys, you don't have to be worried that bad, but it is something to kind of be on note of, and we'll kind of, a lot of analysts, a lot of people, a lot of folks in general are watching this too as well, and trying to hopefully prevent anything bad from happening. So make sure you guys are subscribed with the notifications on as well for the brand new PlayStation 5 giveaway. Amazon links down below for the PS5 disc, digital console, and controller. Twitter and Twitch stream as well, link down below, and sign up for Weeble, sign up for Coinbase, and I'll see you guys later on throughout today for a bunch more videos. And check out those Amazon links too as well. Love you guys.